Hi, are you a Kenyan looking forward to work in the Gulf as a domestic worker? Today, we are going to look at the contract of foreign service for domestic workers. My name is the Ultimate Gorgeous, and this is the Tag Show. Like the introduction of this video has suggested in the thumbnail, we are going to talk about the contract because I feel like it's the most important thing that you need to understand even before moving to any Gulf country as a domestic worker. Before the contract, I also want to highlight some of the important things the Saudi government in particular has highlighted so that we can look at the written Kenyan contract. And because easy contracts zinakwanga na kizungu mob, we are going to be reading and then explaining. Tunasoma, tunaeleza. And that being said, we can roll. So the first highlight ni the employment relationship between the domestic worker and their employer shall be regulated by a written contract, and the Arabic version shall prevail. So the contract that you're going to travel with, whatever that has been stated by the Saudi government, in case of anything, hiyo ya huko ndo itakutetea. The next thing ni, the contract shall be executed and translated, if any, in 3 copies. Each of the 2 parties shall keep a copy, and the third copy shall be kept by the National Recruitment Office. That means, unafaa ukuwe na contract, your boss should have one, and now the office that is recruiting you on this contract shall also keep one of that copy. Then some of the other things that have been stated ni, the nature of work that the domestic worker will perform. Kazi yenye utaenda kufanya kule, lazima itakuwa imeandikwa ni kazi gani. The other thing ni, the wage that the employer shall pay the domestic worker. That is your salary. Ile pesa unalipwa pia lazima iandikwe. Rights and duties of both parties. Your right, yani rights and duties. Kazi, rights. Comment down below. Rights in Swahili, how do we say that? I don't know the translation ya rights, but rights zako lazima pia zitakuwa stated. The probation period. Probation period inamaanisha it's usually 90 days, but if different they will be stated hapo ndani. Probation period inakuanga ni kama ile testing period. Utaezana na huyo employer wako, utaezana na wao wataezana na wewe, because by the end of that probation period they should decide kama watakukeep ama watakurelease. You should as well decide kama utakaa pale kwa ile nyumba ama hautaka. So that also should be stated. The terms of contract and renewal thereafter. The term of contract means the period. Usually it's 2 years. And then after that, what? Okay, also that should be stated. Then some of the other important things that you should know ni, both parties may agree to keep the domestic worker under probation for a period not exceeding 90 days. Like I told you, unaona wamestate, like probation period inakwanga 90 days, during which the employer may verify the professionalism of the domestic worker and the integrity of their personal behavior. The employer may terminate the contract at his or her own discretion during the probation period without any liability if it is proved that the domestic worker is incompetent. So your employer anaweza terminate contract yako like kama hauko good for them. You should also note that. The domestic worker may not be kept under probation more than once by the same employer unless the parties agree that the domestic worker shall be employed in a different job than his or her first agreement. So you only get 1 probation month. Uwezi pata mbili, it's only 1. Uwezi pewa probation month mbili na boss moja mara mbili. The employment contract shall be terminated upon death of either the employer or the domestic worker. If the employer family wishes such a domestic worker to remain in service, they shall contact and refer to the labor office to correct the name of the employer. So this is it. In case of death, of employer na umeandikwa under their name, they should report to the labor office that the employer is dead, and then after there the labor office they shall decide what will happen. But the most important thing is, in case of death of your employer, it should be reported to the labor office. The employment contract expires or is terminated by the employer for an invalid reason. If the employment contract expires or is terminated by the employer for an invalid reason, or by the domestic worker for a valid reason, the employer shall bear the cost of the flight ticket to send the domestic worker back home. So this means that in case of anything, in case mterminate, whether wewe ama boss wako, your boss is the one that is supposed to sponsor your trip back to your country. Akulipie ticket yako, yani you should get 2 tickets, ya kwenda na ya kurudi. Sawa sawa? And that being said, let us now look at this contract that this was, by the way, this was my contract. It's what I'm reading for you guys. So, and I want to show you how it looks. I'll attach a photo of it here. Me, I'll just read it normally. You'll just look at the session because this thing is too serious. So, the first thing that is written on this contract is definitely the form, it's written form LD21, then Republic of Kenya, Form of Foreign Contract of Service, Section 83 of Employment Act, No. 11 of 2007. Now I'm reading the contract. This agreement is made in accordance of Employment Act at Mombasa between the employer, which is now the agency, and their address is also given there, and now the employee. So the contract is usually between the employer and the employee. In most cases, you will find that it is written the agency and you una travel nayo because you will be working under that agency. Then the second clause is nature and place of employment. The employee shall be employed as a housemaid in Saudi Arabia. That is all it states. Nature and placement. So unaenda kufanya job Saudi. So inasema unaenda kufanya kazi ya nyumba Saudi Arabia. Period of service. The period of engagement shall be 2 years, commencing from the date on which the employee leave the Republic of Kenya. So utakuwa unafanya kazi 2 years. You'll work for 2 years from the date of departure. Unaona ile siku unatoka Kenya? Hiyo ndo the date that will start reading. It should be 2 years. The next clause talks about the wages. Wages ni zile pesa zenye unalipwa. And the most important thing to note about the wages is that it should be paid to a bank account nominated by the employee or to a person nominated by the employee. To a person mostly is usually now the Western Union. So, ukienda Saudi, your salary should be paid in full, by the way. If it's 900, it's 900. But now, this is the thing I want you guys to know about the wages. It can be deducted the transaction cost. Like unaweza penda, now you know, now we are talking about kwa ground. Kwa ground utapata kuna boss mwenye atakata kukulipa the full 900, akue anakukata the transaction cost, which usually happens ikilipwa Western Union automatically inakatanga 23. Ikilipwa kwa bank unaweza pata boss wako amekudepositia now the 887 because inafaa kuwa 900, but inafaa ilipwe. If you go to Saudi and your boss gives you your money in cash, you should not take the cash. How is the cash gonna help you? And as you see, the contract states it should be sent to an account. So you should be paid. Unafaa ulipwe do yako kwa account. Sawa sawa. Then the fourth clause talks about now the transport, and it states the employer shall provide free transport by road, rail, air or ship for each employee from and to the place of work set out in the paragraph above. So the paragraph 1 that we had, it stated that you're going to work in Saudi Arabia, right? Or maybe you're going to Lebanon or Kuwait. I don't know the country that you'll be going. But it states here that your transport should be paid by your employer. There are so many cases where you go there and you find people are being told to buy their own flight back to their countries, and it shouldn't be like that. Your employer is the one that is supposed to be paying for your transports, be it ya kwenda na ya kurudi. Then the fifth, I think I'll just leave the clauses. I think nime lose the numbers, but the next one is medical attention. Na inasema, the employer shall provide adequate free medical attention and hospital accommodation as and when required for each employee. Now, listen. This is how this works. Your medication should be covered ukiwa uko. And mostly what happens after the probation month yenye tumeongelelea, they will now give you your work permit. If they decide to keep you, they will process for your work permit, which is usually an ID called IGAMA, and I'll attach it somewhere here so you can see how it looks. And that ID, so long as you have that ID, you are already insured. You can go to any hospital in the Gulf and get treatment for free. And if your medical attention is needed, your boss is supposed to make sure that you get that medical attention. The next clause, it states, relatives not to be required to work for the employer. No accompanying wife, child, or other relative of the employee shall be required to work for the employer unless there is a separate contract of employment in respect of him or her. So you are the only person that is supposed to be working for that particular employer that has employed you. Leave with pay is our next clause. The employer shall grant to each employee leave with full pay at the rate not less favorable than the rate provided for under Section 28 of Employment Act. Let me tell you something, and this is the bitter truth, guys. Most of these employers don't pay leave with pay. Personally, sikulipwa leave with pay, like sikupewa doya leave. But I usually tell people, to be honest, don't be attached to some of these things, because utapata boss mwingine atakwambia go to Kenya, then when you come back, we will give you that money. I've had some have been given that money after coming for vacation and going back, because like I told you guys, and we are going to be talking about all these in this platform, even leaving Saudi sometimes is an issue. Getting your exit is an issue. So that's why you need to understand some of these things and how to go about them. So if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, tafadhali do, because we are going to be talking about all these things up and down. So leave with pay, some of them are really nice. They will give you that vacation money. Some will tell you urudi ndo upatiwe. And for me, I just tell people, to be honest, don't be so attached to that. Ushamaliza contract yako, sweetie, ebu pack your things, get your flight and go back home. Usijisumbue na vitu zingine. But as you can see, contract inasema unafaa kupatiwa. Sawa sawa, just that things kwa ground ni different. Our next clause is accommodation. The employer shall at all times provide at his own expense reasonable accommodation for each employee, or shall pay to each employee such significant sum in addition to his wages or salary as it will enable the employee to obtain reasonable accommodation. Now, this is another reason why I want you guys to understand this contract. You are supposed to get full accommodation where you go to work to. And let me tell you, there's so much misconceptions about Saudi Arabia. Contract inasema you have 3 months of probation. And between these 3 months, you're supposed to check if you can work kwa hiyo nyumba yenye unaenda. So things like accommodation, when you get there and somebody gives you, because this is what has been happening on my TikTok. We've been talking about this for the longest time. Umeenda umepewa tu ka space, umenyamaza. You should not at any cost keep quiet. Na nimeishi kuambia, even from my other YouTube channel, if you've watched some of those videos that I used to make nikiwa Saudi Arabia, I tell people, make sure that the impression you create, the first impression that you're going to create in whatever house that you're landing in, is the right impression in terms of your salary, in terms of your accommodation, and in terms of meals. Because these are some of the things you should get. Accommodation, meals, salary, hizo ni vitu ufai kuwa unabishana ama unabishania. And when you notice mwezi wa kwanza hujapatiwa kitu kama hiyo, why are you even staying there? Kama umeingia kwa nyumba date 5, you should be getting your salary by date 5. Kama umeingia kwa nyumba at this, that is when you should be getting. So mimi naambianga mtu jipatie allowance ya jipatie allowance ya even 3 working days and then ask for your salary. Personally, I used to ask for my salary if I know my paycheck is coming on date 21st, because for me I used to be paid between 21st to 25th. I used to start telling my boss a few days before that my mom needs something, like just give them an alert. Some of you mnaenda mnanyamaza, you don't ask, you just wait. No, you've worked, you should get your salary. Sawa sawa. So about accommodation, if you're given somewhere that you feel is not comfortable, air that. Some of them watakupatia even a very thin mattress. Tell them that is not comfortable for you. Even sleep one night on it and then be like, this is not comfortable for me. Then get something comfortable, because the impression that you create ukiwa mgeni ndo ita determine how the rest of your contract itaenda. Our next clause is death. The employer shall report every death, desertion and serious injuries to the labor officer. So like some of these, this is basically, I think, under the employer. He should report in case of death, desertion, sickness, and you can no longer work. They are supposed to be reporting that to the labor office. Termination of contract. This contract may be terminated in accordance and under the provision of the law of the country in which an employee is employed to work. As we began this video, niliwambia some of the things that the Saudi government, and by the way guys, the Saudi government is really serious on those laws. So you shouldn't be afraid even to make that move to call the police, especially if you're not okay. They have also the 999 that works. So you shouldn't be in any fear to call or even seek help. If you're going to be in a place where you need help, tafadhali make sure that you get that help. And then if you terminate your contract, your boss should definitely sponsor your trip back home, like we said as we began this video. And yeah, you should be just fine. Extension of contract. No employee who wishes to extend, listen to that, or renew his contract of employment shall be allowed to do so except with prior consent of the labor officer, and any such extension or renewal shall, unless the labor office otherwise directs, be deemed to be under the terms of this contract so far as applicable. So if you decide to extend your contract, because as we began this video, you saw that after your contract begins the day you leave Nairobi and it ends your particular day after 2 years. So in case you're going to extend your stay, you should make sure that your documentation ziko sawa, renewal of the visas ziko sawa, and everything is in accordance to the Saudi law or the country that you're going to be working in. Repatriation. The employer shall repatriate each employee on the termination of his period of service or any extension thereof, which may be approved by labor office, to the place in Kenya at which he was engaged. In the event of the government of Kenya having to repatriate any employee, the costs of such repatriation may be claimed in full by the government from the employer. So repatriation, so definitely it's you coming back. If it's the termination, it's definitely that it has to do with you coming back, and it states that you should be released back to your own country, and that is just how it's supposed to be. Agreement of employee. Each employee hereby agrees to serve the employer in accordance with the condition in these contracts. Now, before I even read the last clause, there's something I want to talk about clause 6, where we were talking about sijui relative not working in another house. That is a very important thing to know kabla utoke Kenya. Ukitoka Kenya, unatoka Kenya kwenda kufanya kazi kwa nyumba yenye umeandikwa. Any other chores, like kwenda kwa nyumba ya wenyewe kufanyishwa kazi, it should not even be happening. But there is a difference between helping. Personally, mali nilikuwa, my boss used to travel sometime to up country, sometimes he used to go visit her sister's place, and I had no issues with washing something like utensils ama helping the maid in that house, because as a normal person, that is one of the ways to give back, because at least umeenda kwa wenyewe, umekula and all that, you know, how we were brought up. But any other task, kazi yenye huwezi fanya, kuna kazi zingine by the way is just a lot and it needs to be compensated. You should actually be in a position to say no when you need to say no. If you can do something, just do it. And in fact, mi wambia wase, and I've always told people like this, some chores ni za dakika mbili ama tatu. Instead of you refusing to do something that will take you 5 minutes, sometimes I tell somebody, just do it for your own sake. Because you're in a different country and these are not your people. They turn so fast. Any Arab people, they just turn so fast. So you need to have that kind of mindset or mentality of some things zenye ni small you can just nini. But hii ya kubeba kwenda kufanyishwa makazi kwa nyumba zingine, you should say no from the word go, because even the contract does not allow. Sawa sawa. And don't be afraid to say no by the way when you have to say no. So if you can help. If you cannot, just say no. Say you're not in a position to do whatever that they are telling you to do, or tell them this is a lot, you need to pay for this, and then have that agreement with your employer. Because ukiwa mgeni, that is when they tend to take you to other houses and tell you to work like a donkey. Sometimes they will even tell you to go travel to maybe somebody has given birth and they don't have a housemaid, so they tell you to move to go and work there. That is not your work, sweetie. Let them get their own maid for that. Okay? Then our last clause is this attention. This agreement must be attested by a labor officer in accordance with Section 83 of Employment Act, and shall not be deemed to be valid or be enforced against the employee unless it has been attested. So definitely this is, like we said, nini kianza, and we said like contract iko under hizo nini zote, the governmental nini. And that being said, I think you guys now understand the contract and what you should do and do not. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section. Maybe once in a while we will be having segments where we answer the questions, like the most aired questions, or if it's something that needs to be addressed, we can do that. I can as well reply to your questions in the comment section. So usi hesitate kuacha hizo questions in the comment section. Another thing, if you're going to travel to any of those countries as a domestic worker, this was our first episode. There's a lot that is going to be happening in this platform. So make sure that you catch up every week to watch the videos that we drop, because this was just the beginning of it all. And I don't want you guys to be afraid. Don't move there with fear, because fear is one of the reasons why mademu wetu wanatesekea huko. So don't be be fearless, be bold, know what is taking you there. I'm in full support of you guys going. I've been there and I'm telling you, it's a place that you can manage with the right mindset. Utakuwa tu sawa, you'll do your 2 years, but be a person who is jua yani zile vitu zenye, some of your rights, like we've been discussing them here and all that. So I think with that being said, the last segment inakwanga ya kusign, there's the signature places and all that. Hii pia inakwanga na some other documents zinakwanga tu attached hapo kwa contract yako, ma signatures mingi aziishi, sijui certificate of nini, certificate of employment, sijui certificate of health and all that. But we've talked about the most important things in today's vlog. So in today's video. So I'm gonna see you guys in our next episode. We will be dropping episodes every week, so be sure to follow up on our next episode, and everything is gonna be alright. Let me see you when I see you. Bye.